Hi everyone, welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very special guest for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Hi, Kimberly. I'm Dave Collins. I'm the founder CEO of Oak and Reads. We're an interactive training consultancy, and I'm calling you from the Bay Area. I'm in Castro Valley, California.
Okay, and can you tell me, thank you, it's an honor, and I just wanted to know what it is that you do in your past leading up into your present now.
Yeah, so my past really comes down to two things. I did a lot of improv comedy, improvisational comedy on stage. I taught it, I performed it for about 16 years. And I've also taught businesses how to deal with change. So I've been a workshop facilitator and a corporate trainer for about a decade now. And so those two parts of my past really combined to form my future, or sorry, my present, which is teaching skills that help people deal with change and uncertainty, both at work and in life.
And for and for how many years were you doing? Let's dissect your life. Okay. So tell me your educational history first.
Yeah, so I grew up in Boston, outside of Boston, in Lexington, Massachusetts. Went to Lexington Public Schools, K through 12, and that's really where I started doing performance, acting, and learning improvisation. I had a fantastic improv and drama teacher in high school named Steve Bogart, who really kind of lit this fire in me to love the feeling of going out on stage without a script, without a plan, and figuring it out with the other people with you on stage. It's like the ultimate creative high to be able to get out on stage and create funny, interesting scenes out of nothing. And then from high school, I went to college in Chicago at Northwestern University. And Chicago is really well known for improv. And so I got to explore both the city and also all these great theaters, like really learned a lot both in class. In communication is what I studied. I studied communication studies as well as outside of class, where I continued to kind of learn this art form,
You
and then
know,
moved out here out west.
before you go
Yeah,
any further, I just wanted to know, when you were doing your classes in acting and stuff, was it 70% from the heart and 30% from the script, or was it 50-50? Do you get what I'm saying?
yeah, it's a great question. I think it depends. In class, when I studied communication, in class with a professor and all that, I would say that was, probably more like 80, 90%. Here's the framework. Here's the tool. Here's the technique. Here's how it's written out. Here's how it's worked in business or in government or like in history. And maybe 10% in class was about, well, what's your perspective? What's your style? What's your approach here? The flip side is true outside of class, because I didn't major in theater. When we were practicing improv, it's actually a little bit more like 50-50, because what is, I think, really interesting is there are some rules. There are some things that you do to take care of each other and these agreements you make with each other on stage where you're not going to embarrass each other. You're going to support people. And that's really important. If it was 100% from the heart free for all, it would be a little crazy. And so I think it's the other 50% is I have no idea what the other person on stage really is going to say. And once you get a hold of that and make that exciting and interesting as opposed to terrifying, and it's terrifying for a while, that 50-50 balance is really fun.
So tell me, take me behind the scenes to where you have a director, a producer, you and the rest of the actors. Take me to that one day behind the scene where you were acting and you lost train of thought and how you gained control over that scenario.
Yeah, yeah. So I think about, there are a lot of great shows I've done over the years, and even recently, still doing performances here in San Francisco. I was actually in a class last night. We did some great, great scenes together. And I think what in some ways happens is you get in the zone, and a lot of professionals, I know you've interviewed a lot of really fantastic people, a lot of people really at the top of their game. They talk about this flow state, or they talk about being in the zone. If it's an athlete, I was just watching the World Cup. Those guys are locked in. that kind of the whole world gets quiet, and you're so fully present that you don't actually have to, you don't remember it in a lot of cases where it's almost like you black out, but you're so fully present that things slow down a bit. And when you get really comfortable, and because I've been doing this for 15 years, the 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 decisions become obvious. The next thing to do becomes very clear, and you're not worried about 3 steps down the line. It's just, okay, that person said this thing, I'm going to say this. And I always think of it as like quieting all those voices in my head that are questioning the decisions, and just going with the next decision. And it always ends up being fine.
And before we move forward with your current business, when you do the acting scenes, I just wanted to know, how do you relate, and like how do you relate with the
Yeah.
director and the
Yeah.
producer? Like, do they help mold your free form thought, or how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So in improv, it's a little different from, filming a TV show or putting together a play, where there is a director, and the director's role is really just to coach you after you do a scene and show you different options that you could have taken. Um, Instead of telling you ahead of time, like, I want you to stand here, I want you to feel this way, I want you to walk over here, like, boom, 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 here's the plan. It's actually in reverse. It's okay, once you're done, let's talk about what just happened. Let's talk about the decisions you made. Let's talk about other options you could have taken because you were so locked in. Maybe you didn't see there were 2 or 3 other options. Next time, go with the physical option, or go with the more emotional option, or maybe it doesn't matter. You made a choice in the moment, but here are some things that I saw from the outside. So it's almost like being a second set of eyes rather than a director in the traditional sense who's saying, like, I have a vision. It's your job to realize that vision. More of a partnership that way in improv.
Have you ever not read the script and walked on a script and did a job
Well,
just based on your emotion and what you like? You read the synopsis but not the
yeah.
actual script.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, Kimberly. I haven't done anything with a script since, high school, because I love the freedom of improvising without a script, because a lot of
So,
traditional actors will talk to me and they'll say, "How can you do improv without a script? Don't you get nervous like you don't know what you're going to say?" And I feel the opposite way. I feel like if there's a script, then I can get it wrong. I can forget a line, right? There's a right way, and there's a potential that I do it wrong. But in improv, as long as you're committed and you're taking care of the other person on stage, there's no wrong answer. As long as you're just taking your yes anding and building and creating. So it's a little bit more freeing that way.
and can you explain to the audience what you want to talk about as far as your present go now with your businesses?
Yeah, yeah. So today, um, what I do at Oaken Reads, and I've been doing this for 7 years now, is I bring just what we're talking about into the workplace, into corporate offices, into businesses. I work with a wide range of different, tech companies, legal firms, engineering firms, toy companies, all sorts of different ones, and teach the ability to listen really well, to be present, to speak clearly, often without a script, basic workplace communication skills. I teach those to professionals. I do a lot of work on coaching and feedback for managers, which are these key communication skills that a lot of managers never really get officially trained on. And they're so important for leading people. And they can be scary, right? Because I use this line and I joke, but it's kind of true that, just like we were talking about, there's no script, sitting on my desk at the beginning of the day. I don't have a script saying everything I'm going to say in a meeting or in a one-on-one or a presentation. I'm improvising every day. And so if you take this mindset that you're improvising every day at work, but you can use some tools, you can do some planning, you can be confident. That's what I like to teach in my workshops to professionals.
And how long have you been doing this for?
I started my career as a facilitator 12 years ago, and then I started my own business running Oak and Reed 7 years ago. And so facilitation is something I've been doing honestly ever since college. And I love it. Getting into a room, leading discussions, leading people through exercises, getting adults, oftentimes adults who are much more experienced than I am, to take risks and maybe feel a little silly trying a new skill and being comfortable and confident in that environment. I love it.
Who is your favorite from age range to age range? Who listens the most? Because you have to categorize them. Basically, it's psychology. You have to evaluate.
I hate generalizing by age. I think it's really unfair. It's unfair to all ages. I'm going to be totally honest, because I've had groups that I walk into a room, let's say they're fresh-faced college grads. I feel like, oh, this is a group that's going to be really flexible and interested and willing to take risks. And they are terrified. They're in their shell. They don't want to try anything. I also had a group I did on Zoom kind of early in the pandemic that were in their 80s and 90s, literally 80 and 90-year-olds. They had never been on a Zoom meeting before. This is a group of professionals, founders, really well-established business people. And it was the first time ever meeting on Zoom, ever doing a workshop on Zoom. But you know what? They got on, they did it. They were excellent. They were super open. They took risks. And, these are people who would not have been on the computer, period, but they were a fantastic group to facilitate. There's a phrase called being a lifelong learner. And I think that's a thing that has nothing to do with age, and it's all mindset. And I've given up guessing whether a group will be open and flexible or not just based on how they look. I gave up that years ago because I'm always wrong. I guess wrong every time.
I like that. I like how the older generation came out of their shell. Wow, almost a century old, and they taking risk. I like that. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. So where do you see yourself going in the future with your successful businesses?
Well, hopefully we continue to be successful. Oaken Reads has been through a lot over the last few years, going from 95% in-person work to 100% virtual, and now this balance. And I think in the next few years, I'm personally moving towards doing a lot more coaching. I think that's something that has become really, really popular and a bigger part of my business, where I work one-on-one with executives and leaders, outside of the group training context. Just spending 30 minutes or an hour with a really important leader. It's one of the things I always argue, that if you're in charge of a business, you're in charge of the livelihoods of hundreds, if not thousands of people. If you don't have a coach, someone who is only invested in your success, who isn't, someone who works for you or has their own agenda, someone who's really just there to help you deal with your challenges, talk through potential solutions, push back if you're falling into some of your own traps. One-on-one executive coaching work has been really fulfilling for me, but also something that I see a lot of leaders looking for more of. And even people who are just first-time managers, I argue, everyone needs a coach. They need someone who can be an advocate, push them, challenge them, hold them accountable, and just be there to talk, which is often what someone needs.
What was the turnover rate, and how long have you had? What was your longest client you ever had?
The longest client I've ever had, I've been working with some clients since the beginning of starting this business. So, some come and go, but what I really measure things by is, sometimes a client has to leave because there's a budget, because someone quits, because for whatever reason, and it has nothing to do with me. Those clients will come back 2, 3, 4 years later. And when I get that email or I get that phone call, that really feels good, because I know that they've been waiting for the right moment. And I will have people reach out to me who saw me speak at a conference or were in a workshop 4 or 5 years ago and say, hey, that talk was great. I've been advocating to bring you in. We finally got approval. Let's do it. And that really feels good. That fills me up. I love to hear that. So I'm always patient, because a lot's out of my control as a small business owner. But when those things come into play and show up after 3, 4, 5 years of of marinating, those are great.
That's why they say what goes around comes around, and sometimes it could be good in your cases, and sometimes it could be bad in other people's cases. It just all depends. So,
Yep.
how can the people reach you?
You can, the easiest way is to go to my website, Oak and Reeds, OAKANDREEDS.com, oakandreeds.com. Tons of info there. Find me on LinkedIn, find me on Instagram, find me on Twitter. We're the same, Oak and Reeds, on all the social platforms. And the thing I will plug is, starting out next year, we had a really successful free webinar program at the beginning of the pandemic called Work From Home Wednesdays, where every week I would offer a quick 20-minute webinar on tools and skills you need to know to work from home successfully. I'm kickstarting that again in 2023. So go to my website, sign up for my email newsletter. You'll get invited to this free webinar. It's going to be interactive. We're going to learn a bunch of stuff once a month, all throughout next year. And really like to connect with people, just like on the show, connect with people in a group setting. We can do some exercises and really learn how to, now that we're in whatever this new situation is, how do we work effectively when we're in person, we're virtual, we're mixing it up, some tools and skills that'll help us in 2023.
Thank you. Stay on the line. Thank you everyone for joining my show. I hope that y'all have a wonderful day today. Thank you.